welcome to the Book Bunch. My name is Sam. If you are new here, it's nice to have you, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for your continued support. I hope that you guys enjoy this video. This week didn't turn out how I had hoped it would. This video probably won't turn out how I hoped it would. This is not what I had expected from this review, that is for sure. So today I am doing my review on the Farseer Trilogy, most commonly known as having Assassin's Apprentice in it. I was asked to review this after I did my Bitterbind trilogy review, and I had really high hopes for this series because this is a classic fantasy series. It is something that most people have read or is on their TBR because it is like critically acclaimed and has all of these really good reviews and everything. But I'm going to be honest, and this is an unpopular opinion, and this whole video is probably an unpopular opinion. I really didn't like this series to the point where I only got through Assassin's Apprentice and then about 100 pages of Royal Assassin before I kind of just said, nah, I can't do this. I have read the kind of a detailed synopsis of what happens in the rest because I needed to know if it was worth continuing, and honestly, after I read the synopsis, I did try again to try and push through to see if it got any better or if, I don't know, something changed that would grab my attention, and it just never did. So this kind of series fizzled out for me. I am actually going to be selling off my copies of this because they're in pristine edition and condition, and I didn't want to kind of have wasted my money on this, which, yeah, is a bit of a disappointment. So I'm just going to kind of get into the review here. Basically, this series is about a boy named Fitz who is basically a royal bastard in the old sense of the word. So he is born out of wedlock to the king in waiting of this kind of fantasy realm, and he is essentially a identical almost copy of his father. His father actually he never meets. He's taken to the castle, but by the time he gets there, his father has actually abdicated the throne and left because of this bastard being discovered. His father, the king waiting, his name was Chivalry, didn't actually know that Fitz existed until Fitz was 6 years old, and that's when he was brought to the castle and Chivalry abdicated and everything else. Kind of leaves you with Fitz being raised by Chivalry's right-hand man, Burrich, in Buckkeep, which is the name of the kingdom and the castle. And basically, the first book is about him being taught various skills. So he's being taught how to look after animals, he's being taught how to spar and fight. He's also gets picked up by the assassin, well, the king's assassin, basically, and becomes the assassin's apprentice. And he also gets picked up by another master who is the master of the skill, which is one of the magic types in this world. So there are two kind of main magic systems in this series. One is called the skill and one is called the wit. The skill is basically where you can connect with another person and kind of get into their head and all of that kind of thing. You can see through their eyes, you can suck out their life force, different things like that. So that's the skill. And then there is the wit, which is considered basically forbidden magic, which is where you were born with this innate ability to connect with animals, and you can, like the skill, take over animals' bodies, see through their eyes, talk to them in their head, all of that kind of thing. You can influence their emotions, that kind of thing. So you find out pretty early on that Fitz has the wit. And then slightly later on, but still not really a spoiler, he attempts to be trained in the skill. But that kind of doesn't really go very well. And so that is kind of the Assassin's Apprentice as a whole, and it's just about him learning things. The Royal Assassin is then about him basically going on various missions, trying to protect the king and the prince and the prince's wife. It is also about them kind of traveling to meet the gods of this world, which are meant to help them because this whole kingdom is under threat by these people called the Red Raiders that are basically turning people into, I don't know if zombies is the right word, but they're basically people that don't have feeling or emotion apart from want and hunger. And so, like, if you have something they want, or they are hungry and you have something, like have food, they will kill you and do awful things to you in order to get that. But that's kind of their only thought process, only feeling, like, and people with the skill can't actually connect to these people. They're basically hollow on the inside. And they're called the Forged. And these Red Raiders are basically attacking towns and turning the people into Forged. And yeah, this whole kingdom is trying to find a way to stop that and all of that kind of thing. And then Assassin's Quest basically gets into more personal stuff, like personal vendettas and trying to remain hidden after some things have happened. And I'm not really going to go into it too much because it is quite spoilery. I might do a little bit of spoilery bit at the end. But yeah, there's a lot that goes down within the series. But my biggest issue with this is I could not connect to the story. I could not connect to the main character. I had no desire to just sit there and read for hours about Fitz or his life. I just didn't care. Like, I just did not care about him in any way. I didn't care what happened to him. I didn't care what happened to this kingdom or this people. Like, there was no connection that I had with them. And I really tried getting invested. I really tried liking this series. And I just couldn't. Like, I just couldn't. And it was so boring to me. And it just dragged on and on. And I just felt like nothing was happening, even though all these things were happening, if that makes sense. And I think the main reason for this is because of the choice that Robin Hobb has made in her writing style. And I'm not saying that I don't like Robin Hobb. I'm not saying she's not a brilliant writer. I'm just saying for this series, for me, it was detrimental. So the way that it's written is basically, it gives you the sense that Fitz is writing this much further in the future. So he's already gone through all of this. He's already got the scars from all of this. And he is writing basically what has happened to him in kind of a, I don't know, like, it's still through his perspective. But you can tell that this kind of happened in the past by the way that it's worded. And because of that, the voice that you read through is much older than especially in Assassin's Apprentice, than the character you're reading from. So in Assassin's Apprentice, Fitz starts off as a 6-year-old, and by the end of the book, he's 15 or not even 15, something like that. And the way that you were reading through his eyes, you can tell that it's got a much older voice, and that he's viewing these things that he's done in a much older voice. It's almost like he's unintentionally being retrospective about this. And I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think Robin Hobb intended for that. And because of that, there is this disconnect for me, because every time I'm reading this, like this whole time I was going through this book, I kept thinking that these things were happening to a much older person when in fact they're happening to a child. And then there was this disconnect for me, because I was like, well, if this is happening to a child, then I should feel all of these extra emotions, because these horrible things are happening to this poor kid and he doesn't really have any choice about it. And he kind of seems fine, like throughout the whole thing. Like, even when really traumatic things happen, she'll write a brief thing like, oh, he didn't get out of bed for days or whatever. And you could tell that this kid was meant to be upset about this thing because of his actions, but you didn't feel it. Like, there was no feeling behind it. Like, this kid's dogs get murdered, like, constantly. And these are dogs that he's personally connected to. Like, he's used the wit on, so they have this, like, soul bond. And they keep dying, and he doesn't seem unchanged by any of it. Like, yes, he is sad about it, but he continues to go on in his same patterns. Like, it's like he's not learning anything from any of these encounters, and he is very quick to trust people. Like, basically, if some person shows him any decent level of humanity, like, I want to be your friend, or hey kid, you're not that bad, he immediately is like, oh my goodness, I trust you, you are this father figure for me, and all of these different things, when they haven't really necessarily given him a real reason to trust them, which doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know, there was this huge, like I said, huge disconnect. The actual story itself was pretty okay. Like I said, it's hard for me to review this because I didn't feel engaged by the story, but I could tell that, like, this is essentially meant to be kind of a almost Skyrim-y type book, or even like almost like Skyrim meets Assassin's Creed, kind of that kind of thing, but it's a child. So that's kind of what it is, and I do recommend you reading it and giving it a go yourself, but honestly, it wasn't for me, and I am kind of disappointed about it because I was hoping it would be really good. But yeah, that's kind of my overview. They're my thoughts on it on a basic level. I am going to kind of give you a little bit more of a spoilery segment now, just talking about some things that I just need to talk about. That, yeah, if you haven't read the series, probably don't continue from this point on. But yeah, here we go. So the spoilery bits. What is up with the him and Molly and Burrich situation? Like, that is not okay. I know that most of the weirdness and badness of that relationship and the just, what the heck am I reading, is also in like the Fool's Quest series. But I just can't get over that. If you know what I'm talking about the fact that, like, Molly and him have a kid, and then he dies, which is something else we're going to address in a minute. So he dies. She then goes off with her baby and Burrich, because Burrich is like, well, I need to help look after them, which is all well and good. But then instead of Fitz being like, hey, I'm still alive, hey, whatever, he's just like, oh, well, if I just don't tell anyone that I exist still, my family will be safe, which isn't necessarily how it works, because if someone finds out, then your family's going to be hunted for no reason. You're not necessarily going to know. Also, your family has the right to know, your kid has the right to know that you're alive, and you're a flippin' assassin, like, with the skill. Like, how can you not just skill Molly, or, like, I don't know, do an assassiny thing and secretly go tell her? Like, hello, your whole thing is stealth and secretive and passing on messages that no one is ever going to find and all of that. Like, why could you not do that with Molly? And then the fact that Molly gets with Burrich and they have kids, and then she gets back with Flippin' Fitz and, like, all of that. Like, that is messed up. That is next level messed up, and I don't like that. I don't like that plot point. I also don't understand the part where Fitz and Verity swap bodies, and Verity has a kid with his wife through using Fitz. Like, doesn't that mean that it's actually, because yes, the minds are swapped, but the bodies aren't. So biologically, isn't that then Fitz's kid? I need someone to explain that. I need that to be explained. And maybe it's just because I didn't get what was going on there, but I need that kind of sorted out, because that is messed up. Also, I don't understand the whole, like, the fact that he died, but his mind didn't die and went into the wolf, and they kind of shared consciousness for a while. Like, how can you sustain having two brains in your head? Well, not brains, but, like, two minds in your head. Like, even, like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I know it's meant to be the magic and all of that, but even for a fantasy and magic system, the way it happens and the way it's written and the way it's kind of out of the blue just doesn't fit right to me. And I don't know, maybe if, like, Robin Hobb had earlier on in the series had that happen, but say not out of death, just like temporary, like one of them left the bodies and, like, shared consciousness with someone for a little while because of something, and then they went back to their body, so that it wasn't so crazy that when Fitz was dying that they put his consciousness into this animal and then later brought out his body and put him back in. Like, that needed to be explained more than just happening, because it does feel very much like, hey, I wanted to do something dramatic and kill off the character, but I didn't actually want to, because I wanted the series to continue, so I was just going to throw this thing in here to make it fit my purposes. And I don't know. It just doesn't, it feels like that whole, they're putting a Band-Aid on this, which is very unsatisfying, at least to me. So, yeah, there was that. I also, do you guys not agree with me, those that have read more than at least the first book, that there's just a whole lot of stuff in there? Like, there's just a whole lot of him talking about things that don't really matter, or his, I don't know, even his feelings. Like, I feel like he talks about them, or he talks about this angst that he's got, but it's not really progressing anything. It's not really benefiting the story in any way. And maybe, again, that's just because I didn't feel a connection to the character. But I don't know. It just doesn't, it feels like I said, it feels like there was a lot of going on, but there was no progress to the story. There was no real progress to Fitz. Like, the whole series is just him making mistake after mistake after mistake. Some of them he makes the same mistake more than twice, and he just never learns anything. It's just he's letting life happen to him, and he's just accepting whatever happens. And I get that his motivation is meant to be that he is the king's man and he needs to protect the king and blah 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 blah. But like, I don't know. It just doesn't cut it for me. Like, it was so not exciting. In any way. Like, I was just bored out of my mind. I'm being honest. I was bored. I was really, really bored, and I didn't want to be bored. And I don't know. Maybe I should hold on to the series and see if I like it at a later point. But I'm also like, is it even worth me doing that? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Why did you like the series if you've read it? Why didn't you like the series? Do you agree with me at all? I don't know. Is there some things in there, like with me and the whole weird Molly situation and Burrich situation? Like, I don't understand how, even if Burrich thought that he was dead, right? How did he then go do that when he would know that Fitz would not like that? Like, considering who Burrich was in Assassin's Apprentice, like, he was so, like, I cannot do anything that chivalry would not want me to do. I can't do anything that would be against chivalry's name. I can't do my own thing because I'm still tied to chivalry and blah, blah, blah. And I need to look after his son and all of this and just deal with it because of my bond with chivalry and everything like that. But then he goes and does that? Like, it just doesn't fit who Burrich is as a character, in my opinion. I just feel like it doesn't fit the story. I don't know. Maybe it's also just the setting. Like, maybe I don't like how kind of medieval it is, or at least the tone is very medieval. Like, because I like the medieval stuff. Like, I like, yeah, medieval stories. I like kind of that grittiness. I like the fact that, like, there's no technology and people are using wax lamps and there's no electricity and all of that. Like, I like that. I like that feel. I like the whole, we use swords, not guns, and we use blah, blah, blah. I like that. But I don't like it in this story, I think, because it's not just that's the setting. That is how the story is written. Like, it's written with that voice of, hey, I'm an old-timely guy, and this is how I write in this kind of language. And, like, you're not at the thou level, but you're at that same pacing and that same tone of voice through, I guess, the writer, even though that's not how Robin Hood normally writes. I'm just saying, like, through the perspective of Fitz, who's writing this, his voice is very much like that, and I really didn't like it. I think that's my biggest problem with it, and I think because of that, I don't like the whole thing, because therefore it made the story slow for me. I didn't have an emotional connection, and so everything just got boring. I think that's the problem, but I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know if you agree. I know this is probably disappointing. Yeah, that's my unpopular opinion about the Farseer Trilogy and Assassin's Apprentice. I hope you guys have an amazing week. Sorry, I've been looking in the wrong place for most of this video. I am a little bit out of sorts with this one. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!